Mini episode 1603 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to FDH Lounge Mini Episode 1602. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris here with one of my favorite FDH Lounge dignitaries, somebody I go way back to with the Sports Talk Network days. My close personal friend, the world's greatest MMA ring announcer, Jake Digman, one of our favorite FDH Lounge dignitaries, here to talk the pro graps. There's nobody in the world that's better to break it down with than good old Jake Digman, and we are going to look at WrestleMania 39 today. The matches on the card, the context behind it, everything going on for the biggest event of the year in sports entertainment anyways, and we should differentiate between that and pro wrestling because the differentiation between the two has been getting starker in the last several years with AEW coming along. More back in the direction of pro wrestling with Triple H, but that may be not long for this world based on what might be happening on a business level. We'll get into all that and much, much more with my pal, Jake Jennings Digman. Jake, good to have you on, buddy. Thank you for being here to talk all things Mania.
Ricky, thank you for having me. It is an honor and a privilege to talk the sports kings with you. It's one of my favorite things to do is one of the things I look forward to WrestleMania week is talking with you and breaking down the card as it is. You know, no matter what you say, the little kid in me still gets excited for WrestleMania. It's one big event. It's almost like a holiday, as it were.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward to this year's show, and I'm looking forward to breaking down the event with you here today.
Oh, yeah. I always look forward to breaking it down with you. I'll be watching it. I'm at the point where, to be perfectly honest, I'm watching Mania, I'm watching SummerSlam, I'm watching Royal Rumble. The TV in between, not so much. It's one of those things where I do have to agree with everybody. Things have been on the upswing creatively since Triple H took control last July of creative, and if you're picking up what I'm putting down, unleashed some of the good creative that he has from within a little bit more so and empowered it. But it's one of these things where when I turn it on my TV, and some of this is the nature of the beast, especially with Raw being a 3-hour show and the things they got to do to fill it. It's one of these things where there's a ceiling on just how pro wrestling-y it can be, even with a pro wrestling born and bred guy like Triple H, because the product is what it is. Case in point, I thought to myself Monday night as I was working on some other stuff, I was just going to have it on in the background. Maybe I'll put on Raw tonight. Not something I normally do these days. I put it on. The first thing in the ring was Miz TV with 3 of the divas, and I'm just like, screw this. I'm out. It's just like, and I don't want to hate on Cleveland's own Mike the Miz Mizanin, but like, there's like none of that shtick. At this, it's 2023, okay? And the guy is still doing Miz TV on my screen and out there with it, Becky Lynch has got like a bad script to work off of, and they've got this contrived kind of drama with her and Lita and Trish. And I'm just like, life's too short, man. Let's see what else is on the tube. So it's just.
Can I put out one thing though, real quick?
Yeah.
Damn, does Trish Stratus still look good?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not in question.
Trish Stratus is a fine wine that just keeps getting better with age, and good for her.
To be honest with you, I think there's a case to be made of, like, in some ways, looking better as time has gone on, because, like, in the whole, like, debate back in the 90s, I was on the losing end of the debate with most people. Heather Locklear v. Pam Anderson. I was always a Heather Locklear guy. The whole plastic Pam thing, I just wasn't into as much. And Trish seemed to me to be kind of aping the whole plastic Pam look. but like as time has gone along and everything like that, and she looks more natural, she's one of these ones where, you know, and I know there have been women that I've known personally that are like this, that like the more pomp and circumstance you put into it, I think it's counterproductive. Trish, I think, has a natural beauty to her that is shining through more and more over the years, maybe because she's not getting in the way of it as much.
No, you're right. You know, and the other thing too is the fact that she's free to be herself.
Yes.
It doesn't have to fit within the norms that they do. That because unfortunately, every single the women and the guys to an extent, it's almost like a cookie cutter formula. Not as bad as it was in I want to say the mid 2000s, where every female diva, as it was back then, it was like a tall blonde, and every male wrestler that came through the system was a jacked up dude with tattoos.
Yes.
But,
tribal tats.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I don't know. It just, I just want to give that little bit of a shout out to Trish real quick, though. But,
yeah.
As you were.
I can't argue with that. As I'd indicated to you off air, a note that I want to start with, I want to take my hat off to Mike Johnson of PW Insider. He had a column that I clicked through to read off of Twitter, and it was talking about this moment in time with WrestleMania 39, and he was comparing this moment in time to November 88, what was basically the birth of corporate wrestling when Turner Broadcasting took over Crockett Promotions. A similar moment with the end of that corporate wrestling in March 2001, again, the week of WrestleMania 17. That was the end of Turner and pro wrestling and the start of Vince having a quasi-monopoly for a long time. And it's a thing where it was never like the monopoly. When we were talking about it in the 2000s and the Sports Talk Network days, maybe we were a little bit dramatic on calling it a monopoly, but TNA was never on the same level business-wise as WCW. ROH was never on the same level business-wise as ECW. The promotions that came up in their space, and with ECW, remember, they had syndication even before they went to TNN. So ECW always struggled business-wise, but they were always way above ROH, which was just relying on the DVD sales and very scant live gate totals there. So Vince essentially did have a monopoly, or somewhat of a monopoly, for well over a decade and a half. You could argue that it was starting to fade by the time that AEW came around, because you were already having New Japan kind of cutting into it and some other things in the 2010s. But that was very significant. That moment in March 2001, really about 22 years ago right now, this does kind of feel like a very similar moment in time. We think of WrestleMania 17 as having been the peak of the Attitude Era, with the second Austin Rock match. You would have another one in 2003, but it wouldn't be nearly as big. It would be in the middle of the card, as a matter of fact. That moment that they had there, ironically, you've got The Rock, that had been rumored to be in a comeback against Roman Reigns, had been rumored for a long time, since it's going to be in Hollywood this time around. WrestleMania 39, they've been penciling that in for a long period of time. I'm going to say I think it's not a mistake that it didn't happen, as far as these rumors of the sale, where there's smoke, there's fire. It seems like the Saudis are going to meet the price. If you remember, Jake, at the beginning of January, it was seeming like a done deal. There was a rumor that the sale had already been done surreptitiously to Saudi Arabia, and then that kind of faded away. But they've remained the leading candidate here at this point. Comcast essentially seems to be out of the mix because of the price. They were always the ones that made the most sense, because they've got the WWE Network on Peacock. So you've got guys like The Rock. The Rock has got to be leery of being associated with Saudi Arabia. John Cena doesn't work events over there anymore. There's a lot of negative ramifications to the whole thing of them being a Saudi company if it comes that way. So you're looking at the transformation of them potentially into corporate wrestling. And again, I don't know what's going to be worse. Pizza Man Jim Herd, the equivalent of him getting put in charge of them, or Vince McMahon getting turned loose again in creative. I'd almost rather take my chances with the Pizza Man, even if he tries to bring back Ding Dong's 2K23. But, whatever we're going to be looking at for WrestleManias going forward, I think Mike Johnson is correct. This is the end of something. We just don't know exactly what it is and what comes from here.
Yeah, it's a very important transitional moment in the history of WWE, and really which has been, the face of professional wrestling over, for the modern era for many, many fans out there. It's all that they've known is WWE. I just have to point out, I can't believe that you just advocated for Jim Herd to be in charge in 2023. That's a little out there, but
I'd take him over Vince.
Well, I was thinking, I have a philosophy, and it applies to almost everything, and I'm not going to go down the political road with you on this one, but we've established in this country that 65 is the age of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I think for all jobs, 65 should be the age of retirement, and that includes being the chairman of the board and running the world's largest sports entertainment company.
That would be great.
There just gets to be a certain point where you have to, pass it on to the next generation, in order for the business to thrive. Because I don't care who you are, eventually you age out and you're out of touch with the audience. And the whole thing that makes wrestling, especially WWE, work is you got to rope in the younger fan. Very rarely do you see where someone's in their mid-30s and all of a sudden they discover pro wrestling and start watching it. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but for the majority of us, we saw it as a kid, and we started watching as kids, and that's what got us into it. And it's unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on the booking and the creative, it is the longest, the healthiest, and the most abusive relationship we could ever have.
Well, yes.
Going back to your point about the sale and with Saudi, the whole deal with the Saudis, my question is, knowing the backlash that would come from such an announcement and such an endeavor and everything we talked about, do you think it would be out and out the Saudi government comes out and says, oh, we now own this? Or do you think they would try to hide it and channel it through, basically LLCs or different, through different companies, kind of like how Endeavor for the UFC is a whole group of investors that are a part of that. Do you think they would do something to the equivalency of saying, okay, the Saudi Arabian government's the one financing this, however, it is, I'm just going to use Alpha Entertainment, Vince's company he made up for the XFL, is the actual on-paper owner. Could you see something like that taking place, just in an effort for them, for a PR move, if nothing else, to try to, get the flames down a little bit? Because there would be a tremendous backlash if it came out that it was just straight up the Saudi government that is the ones who were the purchasers.
Well, I would be hesitant to say in the world of sports entertainment / pro wrestling that it wouldn't be kayfabed, but in this instance, I think it wouldn't be, because I think the business model that we're looking at here is Live Golf. And it's a thing where there's a term that's out there in the world called sports washing, of where this is the Saudi government trying to set themselves up. It's like, hey, we're a bunch of pro-Western guys here, never mind about the bone saws and the genocide that we're perpetrating in Yemen, allegedly, and all these things. We're good guys here. They're doing it to get their faces out there. They're doing it because they have the insane amount of confidence that they can, by owning such a commodity such as this, make themselves look better in the modern world. So in terms of looking at what they did with Live Golf, I think that's the exact model we're looking at here, which is them being front and center with their investment and trying to exploit it for all it's worth. And I think, taking their lumps on the PR sphere as that happens. And then you and I talked about this off air, the ramifications of when you have a Sami Zayn, now one of the top stars in your company, who's there. You have a Rock and a Cena with Hollywood aspirations and careers, respectively. That what are they going to want to do as far as being associated with them if they become poison? You have other guys out there on the market. This generation, a lot of the Gen Z wrestlers out there / millennials, a guy like Kenny Omega, who's very socially conscious, okay? Is he going to go to a place with, they execute gay people in Saudi Arabia, and Kenny Omega is very pro-gay rights, so, Sonya Deville, yes, a lesbian. She's not going to be able to work events there. And again, there's talk that they wouldn't interfere with them in the United States. So it's a thing where I do believe that is the case, because I think it would be counterproductive for them. on that, but you're going to have people that aren't going to want to associate with them. A Sonya Deville, if she had the choice to sign with them as a free agent, wouldn't want to probably do that. Kenny Omega as a free agent wouldn't want to do that. So you may see some people playing out their contracts basically, but you're not going to have a lot of these ones wanting to come in. Anybody that really is going to get worked up about these kind of issues, work for a country with a human rights record, a despicable human rights record of Saudi Arabia. I'll say that. I'm not afraid to get political here. I think they're an absolutely loathsome regime. And again, I have long advocated for our government to stop its shameless propping up of them and, favorable deals on these weapons that allow them to perpetrate the genocide that's going on in Yemen. So, but again, that's the way it works though, Jake. The world keeps turning, these things keep happening, and this is a way for the Saudis to try to make themselves look better and more pro-Western. So, I think if it's going down that track, it's going down that track all the way. No apologies on their part. They're just going to keep bringing it. And again, what that leads us to with night one, the first match here, I mean, it's not impossible that the leadoff match for WrestleMania 39, night one, it could be the last time we see one of the biggest stars in their history, John Cena, in the ring. He's there, I think we both believe, to put over Austin Theory, the United States champion, very transparently to put him over. I'm seeing theories that they might go for the WrestleMania moment, Cena beats him and then loses, the title back on Raw in an open challenge. I mean, that's not impossible. And look, the whole thing last year, they should have used Theory to go over Pat McAfee, but they were clearly setting up the bigger thing, Pat McAfee to lose to Vince McMahon, as ludicrous as that was. So Austin Theory lost to the guy who lost to Vince McMahon, but beating John Cena is supposed to do something for him. I give Triple H credit. They've tried to rehabilitate him. I did think it was stupid to have him challenge for the U.S. title with the Money in the Bank thing, but I think they were backed into a corner by Vince setting him up as the Money in the Bank guy. Listen, I don't know that it's going to have any kind of effect, but I give Triple H all the credit in the world for trying on rehabilitating Austin Theory as the fallen chosen one who's working his way back up. It's sort of the equivalent of Drew McIntyre if he'd never left the company and was trying to dust himself off and climb back up the ladder from within. Drew Mac had to go outside to do it. They're trying to do it with Austin Theory being on the inside. Points for the effort. I just don't know that the guy's going to get over to the degree they hope he's going to.
I mean, you got to give him, I guess, the A for effort on trying on this one. And after the scathing promo that John Cena delivered to Austin Theory, which many people said buried him right in the middle of the ring on national television, Austin Theory has to go over. This is very akin to the Roman Reigns Cena. Not the one from SummerSlam a few years ago, but the one I think it was like Battleground. I forget which show it was on, but from I want to say it was one of Cena's when he came back in right before the pandemic hit. They did a match against each other, and he buried Roman, but Roman went over. And I think that's the whole thing. I think we're going to see a competitive match, and at the end of the day, Austin Theory picks up the win. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they went with that, WrestleMania moment of John Cena gets the victory, just because a lot of times they do things on Mania because they in their minds at least, which is, you and I have talked about this for years, where it's like they look for the moment and not for going forward. They book for those people that are watching, the eyes that are on it for just that one show, instead of using the moment to make a star. How many times over the years have we seen where we said, okay, well, this guy should go over, and then all of a sudden, nope, the other person goes over, and we're just left befuddled. But I've got a feeling, I guess this will be the test if it is Triple H's creative, who does have a pro wrestling mind, or if Vince has weaseled his way back into the creative helm. And, I guess this match could be the telltale sign of what's going on there. But I'm going to go with, the right choice here, and that being that Austin Theory picks up a win in what should be a career-making match for him if they both have their working boots on.
It should be. And, of course, when they get to WrestleMania, when there are promos that absolutely bury a guy, Absolutely. It has to be the guy getting buried who goes over. Sincerely, Booker T at WrestleMania 19. But,
Yeah. Or, another one on this one, too, is, I don't remember this, was at WrestleMania 22, when we were on Sports Talk Network. And Triple H just buried Cena the entire time. And to the point where every single one of us picked Triple H to win.
Yep. Yeah.
And in hindsight, you look back and you go, oh, yeah, he couldn't have won. After he comes out and goes, you can't wrestle, it's going to be an easy night for me.
Yeah.
Which is almost the same thing that Cena did in the build-up to this. So, yeah, this is the point where Theory has to prove himself. And I can also see them doing the thing where he takes a cheap shot as a heel and does, but that's not the way you want to open up a WrestleMania.
Right.
You want to give him a definitive victory. And they already got the machine behind him. Anything other than a win for him would just be counterproductive. Because what do? Okay, it's like as much as the fanboy dream idea of Cena wins, comes out the Raw after WrestleMania, and I'm just going to throw a name out there, and Jay White answers the open challenge. Everybody loses their mind about it. Okay,
yeah.
But you bury Austin Theory, he's dead in the water if you do that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
As great as that moment would be, and everybody would be like, it'd be one of those, super mark-out fanboy moments, but at what cost?
Well, exactly. And listen, if they sign Jay White, they're likely to have him job in 3 minutes and give him a bushwhacker gimmick, but that's another story for another time. But, as far as it goes with Theory in this match, yeah, it should be a star-making match, and it will be a memorable moment. I remember the WrestleMania 22, the epic post-show we did at the Sports Talk Network, talking about that build, ironically with John Cena in that match against Triple H. I remember saying, and John Cena in his promos did everything but call him Mr. Helmsley in the build-up to it. Like, John Cena was just taking it. And, it was just inexplicable as to why. So, of course, he got booed out of Chicago. What do you think's going to happen when something like that goes down? But the next match here, and I'm going by the listing that they have as of this moment here on Wikipedia for whatever that's worth. So the next match that we have here, two very polarizing figures in the world of sports entertainment. Seth freaking Rollins, I think he's probably had his name officially changed to that, versus Logan Paul. And again, I am a bah humbug guy on Logan Paul. I get that he brings eyeballs to it. He's very athletic. He's worked hard on it. I mean, he's been impressive in the matches he's been in. And this ought to be a spectacle. Both of these guys are spot monkeys. So, you're going to have a decent amount of excitement and action here. The thing of it is they usually book for the celebs to go over. But Rollins is a guy I think you need to keep in that at least semi-main event mix. And I'm just not sure how plausible that is if he loses to a part-timer here. So I think Logan Paul's going over, but again, that's a classic example of what you said, Jake, booking for the moment. Because if you're looking at the booking plans, you take care of the guy that's going to be there on Monday night and going forward.
You're supposed to, but then again, everything in the past is. I mean, Vince McMahon wasn't coming back to work after he beat Pat McAfee, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
I actually going to disagree with you. I think Seth Rollins goes over just based on the build to this. I know a lot of times, they say that the celebs usually do go over, and I agree with you 100% on that one. I just think on this one because he's a heel celeb. And the more people, and I like Logan Paul. I think he delivers in the ring, and quite frankly, if people didn't know if he didn't make a name for himself with the whole YouTube thing, and the guy just showed up, I think people will be really behind him. He's an outstanding worker, and I enjoy his matches to the point where when he faced Roman Reigns, he was watching for half a second. He made her believe that Roman Reigns was going to lose the belt to Logan Paul, and that's the magic of it. And if you can do that, especially as a celebrity and someone who's has been in this the game for a very short amount of time, kudos to him. I think this one has the potential, honestly, to steal the show. It really does, in my opinion. And Seth Rollins is a great storyteller inside the ring. Logan Paul has shown, he's got great dance partners and he's willing to learn. I'm going with Seth Rollins because coming out of this, there's going to have to, they're going to have some stars and some ideas going forward. And Rollins has just, lost so many times. And again, the build up to this being, this is almost like his redemption arc from last year's WrestleMania where he lost to the re-debuting Cody Rhodes. got to go with Rollins here. If for nothing else, like we said, he's going to be here on Monday, and we'll get to when we get to the main event. I think they're going to be lacking a couple main event stars for a while. They're going to take some time off after this, no matter what happens after this card. And Seth Rollins is somebody who can fit right into that spot if necessary. So I'm going to take Seth freaking Rollins to pick up the win in a match that could potentially steal the show at both nights of WrestleMania.
Right. And by the way, too, Logan Paul being plausible at moments for beating Roman Reigns on that match on one of the Saudi Blood Mania shows there, that's one of those things where it's like a backhanded compliment toward the promotion for making it believable, because in late era WCW, a lot of things that were implausible became plausible because they were that stupid. It was like, my God, they might actually put the world title on David Arquette in this match. They did, so a little bit of making it plausible, Jake, is the thing of like, yeah, they might just be dumb enough to chase the headline of Logan Paul getting this and to basically take the entire investment they put in Roman Reigns and dump it on Logan Paul. There is that thought that they could have been stupid enough to do it, which in a way plays into the plausibility of the match and is beneficial. So it's sort of like recycling poop into usable food, I guess.
That's one way to put it, yes.
Yeah. So, which is literally just an analogy that just came to mind here momentarily. But speaking of poop, let's talk about this six women tag team match. And listen, Jake, this is reminiscent of the bad old days of the booking when Vince was running the show of like, oh, what do we do for Mania? Let's just throw this thing together here. The whole direction of this, it's Trish, Lita, and Becky. Lita and Becky being the tag team champions, but there will be no title defense under the circumstances, versus Damage Control, Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. And that's one of those things where, again, this is a feud that started at SummerSlam. Becky Lynch going out with her injury that they blamed on Damage Control. And it's a stable that hasn't gotten over to the degree that they hoped that it would. They're still kind of chasing it here. You have a WrestleMania where Becky Lynch is available, Ronda Rousey's available. We'll get to her later. You could have had that match. Nobody ever got to see a one-on-one between them, and you can't tell me that people wouldn't pay to see it now. You could be doing anything in the world with Trish and Lita, but you fold them into this match here. I just give this one the big fat raspberry as far as it feels thrown together, and almost everybody involved in this match deserves better than to be part of a forgettable non-title six-woman tag team match. I hate it.
I'm not as vehement in hating it as you are. However, I do have to put out, and I'm glad you brought it up, that how much things have changed where we went from, the potential of even as recently as like 2 months ago, of a Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey match that we never got, that everybody was clamoring for, that quite frankly we should have got at WrestleMania 35 or 36. We 35. It should have been a one-on-one match there, and it wasn't. And it was like, okay, well, we can do it down the road. Everybody thought, this is going to be it. And I do agree with you that this feels like a thrown together thing. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like how the mighty have fallen. At one point in time, Becky Lynch was the hottest star in the company.
Yep.
Dare I say, many people said, oh my God, she could be like, the female version of a Steve Austin. Like, she's the next, crossover star. And now she's one half of the women's tag team champions with Lita, which, okay, but Lita is, in her late 40s, well past her prime. And now if they would have done a thing where it was like, Trish and Lita challenging for the women's tag team titles, okay, I could be on board for something like that.
Sure.
But the legends, Team Bestie, they never got it. I could have even they would have gone with that route, and if they hadn't played out the whole Bayley versus Becky thing over and over again on all the other events played to death, you could have had two interesting stories there. How we have it now, it's, basically, as you said, it's kind of thrown together. To me, it's a waste of Becky Lynch, and it's a waste of Trish Stratus and Lita, quite frankly. And the only thing that has a peak of interest to me in this one, I have a belief, a theory that someone is turning heel at WrestleMania. Someone's turning. And been circulating around for the potential of a Trish Stratus heel turn to face Becky Lynch later on down the road at SummerSlam, which I'm here for. I'm all for that. That sounds like a great idea. I just don't think this is where the turn happens. I think we might see a seed for it, but I don't think the turn happens at WrestleMania, only because Trish has already turned at WrestleMania, and I do think a turn is going to happen, but we'll discuss that. That'll come later on. When that comes up, we'll discuss that one. But yeah, I think, I would say this is going to be the bathroom break match, but it's not. This might be the refill your drinks match, but unfortunately we have a couple others that are going to be the bathroom breaks of this one. I think that all of the women will bring their working boots on. At the end of the day, I guess Damage Control going over because, again, they're going to be there Monday.
Right.
I hate to say that, but, they lost all sorts of momentum since SummerSlam, and a win over, the number one female star in the company and 2 Hall of Famers could be the only positive that could come out of this. So I say Damage Control. So look for Lita, Trish, and Becky to squash them.
Okay, well, depending on how it goes here, this is one of these things. And again, there's no reinflating that balloon. Damage Control was a stable that had potential, but they just haven't been able to make it work. And as far as it goes with Becky Lynch, I cannot be accused of misgendering her because she was known as the man when I say that she's become just another guy. Because that's what they've done. And you're right, it's a terrible, terrible shame. It's a terrible waste. She was a supremely hot act at that time, and deservedly so. She had that stone cold.
Endorsed by The Rock.
Yes. I mean,
on the debut of SmackDown on Fox, endorsed by The Rock. They don't put you in that spot unless, they see big things with you. And that, unfortunately, she's got to recover from that awful heel turn. Like, when she came back and, somebody gave her what she wanted, I'm like, you left as the most popular star, and you left because you're giving birth to your child.
Yeah.
And because she wanted to play villain, it was like, okay. And it just, we were talking about looking back at WrestleMania 17. That could very easily be, equivalent to Steve Austin turning heel at the end of the night at WrestleMania 17. Becky Lynch coming back as a heel. No one wanted that.
Yep. And remember, Steve Austin at WrestleMania 18, wrestling in the middle of the card, a lukewarm match against Scott Hall. I'm not saying that this match is well below even that, but I mean, this is Becky Lynch getting misused in a similar way to Steve Austin. Again, like you said, because of nobody had the common sense to say, let's not turn our biggest star heel. And that was just absolutely ridiculous. I realized they were trying to build Bianca, and they have succeeded in building Bianca. We'll get to that subsequently, but there had to be better ways of doing it than that. The next match here is one that you told me you told me off air you were marking out for this as a possibility here. Brock Lesnar almost with MVP, a singles match. And this is a thing where, I will say the novelty factor of Brock throwing around a big guy like this, this is interesting. And it's funny because, again, Brock has been known to veto matches against other big guys. He didn't want any part of, who can blame him for this? The whole circus with whatever the hell is going on with Bray Wyatt the last couple of years, and that whole the funhouse crap, and Brock Lesnar shouldn't be sucked into something like that. But he's always gone out of his way to be able to point at hey, what about AJ Styles? Hey, what about Finn Balor? Hey, what about whatever? Because he knows those are the guys that can make him look good. So I'm gonna say this for your optimism about it being a good match. Brock Lesnar has always been very, very, very underrated for his savvy about who he can have these great matches and great moments with. So he must see almost as having at least enough athleticism to be able to keep up with him and have some memorable moments and make this match count for something here. Brock would not be wrestling this guy. He's got the stroke to avoid it if he wanted to. He would not be wrestling this guy if it was going to be the crap show that a lot of people are fearing it might be.
To correct you real quick, Rick, I never said it was going to be a good match.
Okay.
I just said I was looking forward to the spectacle of it.
Gotcha.
Much like last year, I was very much looking forward to Lashley versus Omos. And
Why?
that match was everything I thought it was going to be.
Oh.
Two big horses. That's exactly what I wanted. Two bulls colliding at each other like that. It's like I told you off air. It's like a Godzilla these two big behemoths of human beings. So I mean, if this thing goes over like 6 minutes, I'll be amazed, right?
Right.
What we're all here for, and what the WWE is going to try to spin as, they're going to try to they're going to try to sell Brock Lesnar F5ing Omos as the modern day equivalent of Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant.
Right.
It's not going to be, but they're going to do everything in their power to sell it as, oh my God, look how amazing and impressive it is. And it will be a sight to behold, and it will be a feat. And I mean, anybody, we said, you got to look towards the future for the previous matches, but unfortunately, I think we've reached the ceiling of what we're getting with Omos. Omos isn't, he's not going to tear down the house or anything. As I told you off air, he's better than the Great Khali, but that's not exactly a high bar to set yourself
right.
for, I think it would go, El Gigante, Great Khali, Omos. Because there's only so much that a guy who's 7'3" can do. And I think put in this situation, quite frankly, for Brock, it'll be leg day. He just, tosses him around a couple times. It'll create a visual. And Brock's going over because the entire build to this has been Omos just, hitting one move and Brock intimidating. Can he stop him? Which clearly he can, because he did it last year.
Yeah.
So they've done a very good job of that. Now, there's been some theories coming up that, the idea of perhaps the Hurt Business reunites here and beats down Brock. I don't see anything like that happening. I see it being a spectacle match is what it is. Brock Lesnar, under 10 minutes. I'll go 6.5 minutes. He does I'm not going to say he does 10 German suplexes, but he does take him to Suplex City. We'll go with 4 or 5, and then an F5, 1, 2, 3.
Right. I mean, what they're going to be aspiring to, which they're not going to make it to the point of, but I think it was WrestleMania, 33? The greatest 5-minute sprint of all time. Lesnar and Goldberg, word to your moms, we came to drop bombs. 5 minutes of just awesomeness. You're not going to get that here. You're not going to get, if you get 3/5 of the awesomeness of that match, for the length it goes, be happy. But again, and this is a thing too, you talk about the savviness of Brock Lesnar. This is a thing where, again, they had to reinflate Omos a little bit here because, again, he just, and this is one of the things here too. This is why guys that are that big, it's very challenging for them to have a shelf life, because if you're that big, you have to either be at the top of the card or you're gone, because the suspension of disbelief can't be there. That's why I always said the worst enemy of David Otunga was his body. That guy needed to just spend 6 months in a sauna shriveling away, because David Otunga with his body had to be toward the top of the card, because it would expose the business if he wasn't. And it was and it's the same thing with Omos. So they had to reinflate him for these purposes. They're not going to be able to keep him reinflated, i.e., this is a guy Brock Lesnar can beat. Brock Lesnar needs to keep piling up wins like this in order to stay viable. I mean, it was a year ago where when he lost to Roman Reigns, again, we wondered if he'd have any kind of shelf life left. Meanwhile, he's getting fattened up by guys like Lashley and Omos to where, listen, it could be Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. Lesnar is staying relevant by picking up wins like this. So
that and Brock Lesnar completely reinvented his character.
He did.
I mean, he's still you get the same basic match with him, but for the longest time, it was he was the one note, Paul Heyman spoke for him, and everybody was of the belief that he hated people. Well, we now have we see that he still hates people, but he is very good at playing. Brock Lesnar coming out as the cowboy country Brock is my favorite version of Brock Lesnar ever. It's who is this guy, and what did you do with the Brock Lesnar that I knew? But at the same time, it's this is going to be the key to this. It looks like he's having fun.
Yes.
As opposed to just doing it because it's his job.
Yes.
It looks like for the first time ever, I joked around with people. I say, Brock living in Canada, I'm pretty sure he has a wheat farm up there now that kind of mellowed him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he's it just looks like, they say, you're finally getting to see the real him. I think both sides are the real him.
Yeah.
But the version we're getting now is, and, let's not forget, it was, not too long ago where fans hated him because they viewed him as a part-timer who just came in, made big money. Nothing's changed whatever. Granted, he comes in for a few more dates now. Nothing's changed. It's just the demeanor that it's like, oh, okay, he's fighting. He's our guy that, like, we're going to bring, he's our super boss that we're bringing in at the end of it.
Yes.
As opposed to, like, and the thing that's been a benefit for Brock also, he hasn't been that final boss character in having a stranglehold over one of the world championships as he did for 6 years now.
Right.
I think this is in the perfect role for him to be in, and as you said, him beating an Omos, he heats Brock right back up again, gives him enough time. You said Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, which, that could be a theory. I'm going to go with one that I want to see at SummerSlam just for selfish reasons. I want to see Brock Lesnar go for the one belt that he's never had, and it's also going to spoil who I think is going to win. I want Lesnar to be Gunther at SummerSlam. For no reason other than to say, Gunther saying, I beat everybody. There's nobody else for me to beat, and Lesnar's coming out going, I never won that belt. I'll come fight you.
Ultimate Haas fight. That would be friggin' amazing. And not to be Nelson nitpicker, I don't think Lesnar's ever been a tag champ either. But yeah, as far as the singles belts, you're absolutely right. Well, that
he'll win them both by himself next Friday on SmackDown.
Yes, and that and the cruiserweight belt, which they don't have anymore. He's never held that one either. But Lesnar, look, as far as
actually, he's never held any belt other than the world championship.
That's incredibly impressive, actually. But
he's never had a secondary belt ever.
Well,
of any kind.
He came in at the top of the card.
But that doesn't count.
Yeah, he came in at the top of the card, and he's been there ever since. That's unique in the history of wrestling. I will say this, as far as it goes with Lesnar, again, that this whole notion that, like, and not very good self-awareness on his part all these years, that he thought that, and I saw, like, the interview he did with Steve Austin where he talked about being socially awkward or whatever, not his words, my words, but it's a thing of, like, to not realize that you had this in you. How dumb do you got to be? Because, he had this in him all along, clearly, and should have tapped into this earlier. Like you said, people give a lot more credit. He looks like he's having fun. He's a face right now. He has to be a face with this persona. It's almost like, to go real old school as far as special attraction, it's like Roughhouse Fargo in Memphis back in the day, decades ago.
That's a deep cut right there.
That is a deep cut.
Just to jump on what you said real quick about him having it inside all along.
Yeah.
But he had Paul Heyman is still a 1,000 times better promo than Brock Lesnar is.
True.
And if you have that, and quite frankly, let's be honest, what's the old saying? Work smart, not hard.
True.
If you're going to get paid an exorbitant amount of money to show up and stand there and dance around,
right.
Hey, it's not a bad gig if you can get it.
Right. But, you're right. It worked then, but this is working.
And it may also be a thing of self-confidence, because if you remember when Lesnar first came back from the UFC, he was terrible on the mic. It was awful.
Yes.
That's why they brought Heyman in to begin with. It was just like abysmal to watch. Like, this is bad. He needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah, but it was bad scripting. They were forcing him into being a heel character when everybody wanted to cheer him against Cena. He had bad material to work with us. I mean, it's kind of like the thing of, like, Triple H, although he was being political even then, where he was like, I was just a crappy babyface in 2002. Well, again, the material that he had sucked, but he couldn't say that because Stephanie was in charge of creative. So it's like, a lot of times people think they can't do a certain thing, but nobody can do anything with really crappy material. And, Brock is proving that now with what he's able to do. The aforementioned Bianca Belair referenced her as far as Becky Lynch's disastrous heel turn at SummerSlam back in 21. Bianca Belair subsequently getting established last year by finally beating Becky Lynch once and for all, and wrestling Asuka, who is one of our all-time favorites. So this should be a great match. Bianca manages to always have very athletic matches, and she is somebody where she's actually, it's funny because she's similar to Becky Lynch. She's so much bigger on the main roster than she was in NXT, as was the case with Becky. Becky, had a good run in NXT, but she wasn't anywhere near on the level of Bayley and Charlotte, and Sasha. And Becky turned out to be having the biggest upside for whatever period of time on the main roster. And Bianca had a nice run in NXT, but has been very, very, very huge in this regard. And again, is somebody that they trust to make a lot of media appearances. I saw her as a Tennessee fan. I was cheering when they had her cheering on Tennessee on ESPN Game Day in the fall here. Like, Bianca's is somebody that they love to send out there and represent the company. Asuka is probably being used just to kind of fatten her up at this point, because that's where Asuka's at in this point of her career. So I can't criticize it in that way. I mean, I'd like to see Asuka get another run on top, but there's only so many spots to go around. And again, they have this big investment in Bianca. It will mean a lot for Bianca to beat Asuka with her track record. Should be a really good match. So unlike the previous women's match that I crapped all over, I'm not going to crap on this one. I mean, the build, is what it is. But again, the match we get out of it should end up rectifying things.
I think there's something special in Bianca, in of that she reminds me a lot of a 2006 John Cena. And what I say by that is I can very much see the crowd clamoring to turn her heel. And I say this because her whole gimmick of being the best, the quickest, the fastest, whatever, in the EST, that is basically one minor tweak away from going from confidence to arrogance and cockiness. And I think there is so much untapped potential that is in there with a heel run for Bianca as remaining the champion, much as how when Cena in 2006, when he beat Shawn Michaels over into 07, people were hating him. They were just clamoring for anybody to beat him. And, they just hated the whole idea of he was this goody two-shoe. They hated the idea that he was the face of the company.
Right.
They hated the idea that much like Roman Reigns later on, and I can see if WWE's not careful, I can see Bianca Belair going down. I can see it right now. Her going down a very similar path like that. And my only thing is with Triple H being in charge of creative, knock on wood, hopefully that he still is for the foreseeable future, or enough to be able to see okay, there is money in a heel version of Bianca, because let's face that, everybody likes, they like to cheer for somebody, but once you keep winning, eventually they're going to want to see you fall.
Yep.
And I think we could see the moments of that happening here, because what else is, other than as far as being a babyface goes, what else is left for Bianca Belair to do, assuming she gets past Asuka? There isn't really a whole lot. That is the only thing I can think of is a potential matchup with a heel Charlotte Flair. That's about it. And I think, there's a couple, and if you want to go back and revisit the Becky Lynch story, you could reverse the roles on this one and have it the man and the EST. Because if you remember, it wasn't the man Becky Lynch, it was Big Time Bex,
right,
which is stupid, but it is a little bit of a tweak. I think, again, I told you, I think we're going to see a turn happen at WrestleMania. This isn't the match where it happens, but I think we start to see, especially with that crowd. I think this might be the first time you see with that crowd that's kind of like going, okay, you know what? We want Asuka to win because she's been shafted for a long time, and we want her to have that moment. You remember, her run happened her championship run happened during the pandemic.
Right.
There was no fans there. So the fans that have been behind her, never got that satisfying moment for her. And, when she inexplicably lost to Charlotte Flair when she won the Royal Rumble, they were denied back then. So I see Bianca Belair going over, and I say that, much as the WrestleMania crowd has done in the past, I say we start to see the crowd turning on Bianca a little bit, just based on the fact of, nothing that she has done. I don't see her doing, too many, heel moves or anything in this to win. I see her winning as, standing triumphant, twirling her hair like the baby face that she is, because that's what they have to do as a baby face, is smile and do the same thing every week.
Right.
But I think we slowly, especially, I think the crowd responding to her and what happens at this could lead to some stuff in the future, and we could get a really, really nice heel run with her, and especially with them having a reality show coming out with her and Montez Ford. I think there's also potential that we could see those two aligned on TV as heels in the future.
Very possibly. A couple things to react to there. First of all, you're talking about a heel run, and I can't help but think, as you sort of referenced there, Tell me it's not going to be big time Bianca. Please tell me it's not going to be that.
No, it's the exact same thing. And she's still the EST. She's better than you.
Okay.
She's proven that. She's just the best.
Well,
and let's face facts. People love to cheer for a winner until they don't.
Well, true.
Until something new comes along.
Right.
And what is that something new? I don't know. But I also have a feeling that's the reason why the WWE didn't do Bianca and Rhea Ripley also.
Right.
Because they knew what the reaction would be. So it'll be interesting to see if it, they still get the reaction. I think it's going to be let's just say a mixed reaction for her. And do they capitalize on it, or do they go the full Cena route and never turn her heel and really tick everybody off?
Who knows? And again, I was thinking the crowd even before you said it, because it's a Smark happy crowd. Us Smarks, we love Asuka. She's beloved by us. She's had a great run. We always want to see her get all the accolades possible. They can never act heelish on TV, but crowds don't always abide by what they're supposed to do. So, yeah, it could be the crowd going into business for itself a little bit here, cheering Asuka, or at the very least a split crowd, which is going to make it interesting. The match which is main eventing night one here, to me inexplicably, because I think there are a couple matches I'd clearly put over this. Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Championship against Rhea Ripley, and this is one where, with Bianca, of course, defending the Raw Championship. So this is one where, again, Rhea, I think we agree, should have gone over a couple of years ago over Charlotte at WrestleMania. Charlotte this time around, inexplicably in the role as babyface. It's not going to last long, as it didn't previous times. For very long, because there's always a limited amount of shelf life when you do that there. Rhea Ripley really getting over in her role with the Judgment Day. But again, she's so central to that storyline, it is kind of weird putting her in a championship match, because it's a little bit of sort of like split focus for her storyline-wise. And this is a thing where, again, as undeniably one of their biggest stars going forward and one of the very best in the ring, this is the type of match that should be a showcase where she goes over. I'm guessing by the placement on the card that may very well be the case, but much like LOL, Cena wins again, LOL, Charlotte wins again, was sort of the mantra for much of the 2010s going into the 2020s. So who the heck knows on this one? Gun to my head, I'm thinking it'll probably be Charlotte. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong on that.
I mean, you can never bet against Charlotte Flair. She's obviously one of the chosen ones within that company. However, I think this is going to be a situation where they do put the belt on Rhea Ripley, especially with picking Bianca to retain. So there'll be that little bit of a changing of the guard there, and coming out of, because they got to do something, with the Judgment Day guys, I guess. And hopefully this leads to her kind of like branching off a little bit and becoming more of her own character. And don't get me wrong, like, she made me give a crap about Dominic Mysterio. If you'd asked me a year ago, I'd be like, why is he even on my TV? And now he's one of the most entertaining things on the show. Right. I'm sure we'll get to him when we get to him. But this is going to be a situation where, as much as they've tried to make Charlotte Flair the babyface in this, totally miscast on it going into this, that crowd is going to be 100% behind Rhea Ripley. She's going to get that WrestleMania moment, win the championship, and then the question is, where do you go from there? And I think with Charlotte Flair, honestly, she goes away again until she has to come back and win the belt again. Because, quite frankly, that's what her gimmick is. And they pretty much said as much on her documentary that she's going to be the one to break Ric Flair's record.
Right.
And I could see that happening. And she can't get to step 17 unless she loses. So, I see her putting over Bianca. I'm sorry, not Bianca, putting over Rhea. Maybe doing a rematch at whatever the next premium live event is. And then, taking some time off. Maybe, or heck, even taking some time off and returning for the rematch at SummerSlam, and then they do the match with the proper dynamic, heel face dynamic that's going down. But then again, as you said, LOL, Charlotte Flair wins. So who knows?
Yeah, well, and hopefully she can coordinate her vacation to the next time that Andrade pie faces Sammy Guevara backstage, so that they can coordinate their vacation time again together. But as far as it goes here, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think Charlotte is going to be one to get that record again. If I was fantasy booking this sumbitch, it would have been Becky Lynch against Ronda Rousey 1-on-1. And again, I'm in favor of doing what they did with the tag titles in the men's heavyweight championship and unifying it. I would have had heel Charlotte Flair against Bianca in a unification match. I would have done this here. But that's not the direction
I
chose to
agree
go in.
with you. That was actually my fantasy book too. So.
Really? Okay. Great minds think alike, Jake Digman. Great minds think alike. And in looking at Wikipedia here, they're not necessarily sure which of these other matches are going. I have a feeling which of these other matches is going night one, but so most of these will be night two. But I'm going to lead with this one here. This is probably going to be a night two match. Intercontinental Championship, meaty men slapping meat, trademark Big E. Gunther, Intercontinental Champion against Sheamus against Drew McIntyre. I think, again, it would have been a better match if it was Gunther against Drew Mac straight up, but they want to run it with all three of them in there. And it is going to be a spectacle, a three-way Haas fight. You don't get to see too many of those. I'm pretty confident under the circumstances we're going to see Gunther retaining at the end. It would be the WrestleMania moment if Sheamus wins because he would be doing what he was unable to do at the September pay-per-view over there in the UK, where he had a chance to add the Intercontinental title to every other title that he has held with the company here. Although, the funny thing is, I was going to say, I don't have a memory of him being tag team champions. Duh, the bar. Okay, I was thinking to myself, how did I put that out of my head the entire period of time? But anyway.
Okay, we all did.
So. Yeah, probably 5 minutes after it happened, right? But
I was there when he won the belt, and I forgot about it.
But listen, again, Gunther is just, the epitome of awesomeness. And again, seeing him in the position that he deserves to be in and delivering in these matches is one of the absolute best things they've done in recent years.
I'm going to be 100% selfish on this, and I think you will agree with me on this one, because you are also a fellow Walter Gunther fan. Mm-hmm. And by the way, when they first changed his name, I was really annoyed, but now when you look at him, he doesn't look like Walter. He looks like a completely different person.
He does.
So it made it a lot easier to get behind it. I was like, oh, okay. He doesn't look like, that's not Walter. That's a completely different guy.
Yeah.
I think, and obviously based on what we've seen with the bloodline, that Triple H and the WWE have no problem doing this, it's time for the Honky Tonk Man's record to go down. And Gunther is the perfect guy to do it. It adds such legitimacy to that Intercontinental Championship, which is it's a constant conversation ad nauseum about how it needed rehabilitated. Well, it is on the guy who can do who's in the process, in the midst of that rehabilitation. And I think, that we're going to see him be the one to break his record. I heard somebody, I forget who it was, one of the names brought up as somebody much further down the road after he breaks the Honky Tonk Man's record. A couple names thrown out there. One of them was a Braun Breaker as a potential to be the guy to end that reign, which would be absolutely perfect, and I would have zero problems with that. But in the here and now, as I stated earlier, because I want to see Brock v. Gunther at SummerSlam, I know we probably won't get it, but a guy can dream, can't he? We'll have, it's going to be an entertaining, meaty Hoss fight that I'm here for. This is my kind of wrestling that I love, where there's brutal back and forth, we're going at it. At the end of the day, I think it's going to look like Sheamus is about to get that moment, and then Gunther sneaks in and steals it, and retains his championship, beats the odds. However, I also have the fear, because this is the WWE LOL, that Sheamus broke kicks Drew and pins him, and they still go, well, Gunther's still undefeated. Yep. And they try to sell that crap, which is like, don't do that. Yep. Go with what's working. Keep the belt on Gunther. Keep it on him until bring back Santino's honkometer, and let's just don't actually bring it back on TV. That's making a reference for you.
You pop me.
You got a star here in the making that can work and is believable. And he's got the two guys that are heaters that can take the losses and take the bumps for him. So. I'm going with Gunther here in what should be another match that could potentially steal the show. and this is one. This is one of the ones that I'm very much looking forward to. But Walter Gunther all the way in 2023.
Absolutely, and if he was to get asked in an interview why he is Gunther, he could be like, Walter was the version of me that had a gut. This is Gunther now. But
I just assumed it's his last name.
Oh, okay. Well, Could be Walter Gunther.
Walter Gunther.
Yeah. I mean, hey.
We never knew his last name. So
that makes as much sense as anything. By the way, you popped me with that honkometer reference. I will return the favor. You and I were joking off air about Meltzer and the stars and everything like that. And both of us have some issues with the way that he's been applying stars here. And I said to you, he never should have gone over 5 stars, and this thing of like 6 3/4 is like ridiculous. Here's me popping you on my reference to that. I guess we can blame Dave Meltzer for our inflation problem in this country, Jake Digman.
Who knew?
Yes. It was Meltzer all along, damn it.
Wait a minute. So if we go by inflation, then does that mean Kurt Angle did get 5 stars?
That's right. Well, Jake, by the measure of 2023 stars, okay, if you were to apply those stars back to the currency of 2000, then Kurt Angle would have wrestled a 9-star match against Eddie Guerrero, maybe. So.
Right.
Oh, let me tell you something. The nerdiness that pro wrestling fans can get into with this kind of stuff is just not to be believed, and that's my favorite kind of humor.
And the people listening to this right now are going, "What the heck? What are they talking about?" It's like keep up with us, audience. I promise you, it's a joke with the old line that WWE Hall of Fame inductee Andy Kaufman once said. They said it to Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon. It's like, this is a joke that only 2 people find funny. Yeah, and we think it's hilarious.
Well, exactly.